Russian-speaking students, on the other hand, reduce the not. They'll say, I couldn't see it, or I didn't go there. No one really does this because we don't reduce the not.
You're listening to Accent Amazing, where we combine language, linguistics, and history to help you improve your pronunciation and make your accent amazing.
Not. It's a super common word, just 3 letters, N-O-T, but it's one of the most common words in all of English. According to the corpus of contemporary American English, it is the 40th most common word. In written words, it appears roughly once every 100 to 200 words, depending on the context. However, learners of English often say it in a way that makes it kind of unnatural and non-native sound. So if you improve it, because it's so common, your English will get much better just from improving this one word and how you use it. You'll get more bang for your buck, as they say. Today, we're going to go into the word not and how non-natives say it in a non-native way and how to say it properly so that you can sound more fluent and native and natural. We'll cover how to say the word, what contexts to use it, and how to say it the way you've been saying it, in which context that is appropriate. So the main problem is that English learners tend to use the whole phrase that contains the not. So they'll say, have not, he is not, I cannot, I would not, as opposed to actually contracting it, which is how native speakers of English tend to say it. We tend to say, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I can't do that. He hasn't come yet. They won't be able to tell us in time. And that is how we normally do things. We tend to contract things in English. We don't say the whole phrase, at least not typically. Contractions, therefore, are super common in English, and just by using more contractions as opposed to the full phrase, you will sound a lot more natural and fluent. The only situations where native speakers tend to use the full phrase is when they want to emphasize something. Something like, I did not say that, or you cannot just barge in like that without telling people you're coming. Or, I have not seen any improvement whatsoever. These are some examples of the ways that we tend to use the full phrase and actually say not rather than hasn't, wouldn't, and can't. Now, let me give you some examples of how non-native speakers say these. Syllable time language speakers, such as Chinese, often just say is not, cannot, have not. They'll say, it is not time, or I cannot do that, or I have not seen that movie. And so that does give it a sort of a Chinese sort of feel to it. I think that Spanish speakers also tend to do this. I cannot tell you, or I have not seen that movie. Um, and it does sound a lot more staccato, and the rhythm doesn't really fit with English rhythm. Russian-speaking students, on the other hand, take it a little bit further, and they do something that English speakers do, but not in the right way. So they reduce the not. They reduce the vowel into a schwa. They'll say, I couldn't see it, or I didn't go there, or he wouldn't say that. And no one really does this because we don't reduce the not. When we do separate and have a vowel in the not, we tend to say the full um, we tend to say the full form because it's stressed, and so we don't reduce not into nut. If we do reduce it, the vowel instead disappears, and that's why we have didn't and can't or haven't and not have not. So you can see that the vowel is no longer after the N. Instead, the N is actually just before the T. We might even insert a vowel before the N, but not after the N. It disappears when it's reduced. So why do non-natives say the full phrase? I suspect it's because they first learned the full phrase, and since it's good enough to be understood, you can always be understood when you say, I cannot go to the zoo today, or I have not seen that movie. Because this is understood so easily, because you're actually being super clear, there's no impetus for you to change it. People already understand you, and you already know this. So a lot of non-natives will continue using that. And there's no negative pressure from people not understanding you for you to change the way you speak, as opposed to maybe you have a pronunciation issue. Maybe you can't say or and you say got, and then like people don't know if you're saying cut or cat, so they're always confused. And so therefore you know that there's a problem. And that is a bigger problem, the pronunciation issue, cat and cut, because those are phonemic. They change the word. Cat and cut are different words, but cannot and can't are basically the same meaning, although one just sounds better. And this is more about sounding natural rather than being understood. By the way, if you're finding this useful, be sure to subscribe. It really helps the podcast, and I'm just trying to grow it and help more people sound more native. Now, let's practice the more natural way to say not in phrases. These phrases in question are composed of not being at the end of a phrase and are contracted into things like from cannot to can't or has not to hasn't. And they typically get rid of the vowel. And that's what the apostrophe is for. If you don't know what the apostrophe is for in English, if you see an apostrophe and it's not a possessive, then it means that there is something missing, such as, for example, can't is missing an O or and an N. Hasn't is missing an O again from has not. Sometimes we write things like, and you can see that the apostrophe cuts out the O and U of you because we're not saying you know, we say you know, or what you doing. And so you can see with the apostrophe there, it's kind of cutting out some letters there and making it seem more spoken. So let's try saying that. Can't, can't, can't. Doesn't, doesn't, doesn't. Haven't, haven't, haven't. How's that? If it's kind of difficult to get rid of the vowel, you can always insert another vowel before it. So you can say instead of haven't, you can say haven't, or didn't instead of didn't. They're both okay. They're both okay as long as you don't put the vowel after the end because that's where the apostrophe is and that means it's being cut out. So it's didn't, 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 haven't, haven't, haven't. All right, so now I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to try to answer them before I tell you the answer, okay? How would you contract these phrases of would and not? That's right. Wouldn't, wouldn't, wouldn't. How about was not? That's right. Wasn't, wasn't, wasn't. All right. How about should and not? Yep. Shouldn't, shouldn't, shouldn't. And this one, must not. That's right. Again, mustn't, mustn't, mustn't. And if you notice, there's something a little bit different about this one because I don't say the T. We don't usually say mustn't. That's a bit too hard to say, so we skip that T as well, even though we write it. Mustn't, mustn't, mustn't. So now let's try a few sentences. But this time, let's try to say it the normal way with contraction and then the emphasized way without the contraction. I haven't been to the new museum. This is a normal, everyday, matter-of-fact statement. I haven't been to the new museum. Now the emphasized form. I have not been to the new museum. This is emphasis. Maybe you didn't hear me the first time, or I'm correcting you because you thought I had in fact been. I have not been to the new museum. Next sentence. I don't want to go. It's normal, everyday sentence. I don't want to go. I do not want to go. I'm emphasizing it. I do not want to go. Although, to be fair, you can also just emphasize don't. You could say, I don't want to go. They're both valid ways to say it. But do not does sound more emphasized, and don't is the only one that can be a normal, sort of everyday, a neutral sort of statement sense. Next one. He wouldn't leave me alone. Normal, everyday sense. He wouldn't leave me alone. He would not leave me alone. I'm emphasizing it. Maybe he was just really trying to get me to join his club or talk to me for some reason. So He would not leave me alone. I'm emphasizing it. And now you know about contractions. Remember, with not, although you can say it separately, it's more natural to contract it. The full phrase tends to be for emphasis. Have you noticed this before? What are some other phrases that have not that you can contract? Write them in the comments below. And if you're listening to this as an audio podcast, I'd love for you to rate it on whatever platform you're listening to it on. And that's all for today. Remember to practice contractions to make your accent amazing.